Hello and welcome to On the Clock, presented by WorkStream. If you care about hiring and retaining hourly employees, you're in the right place. I'm Daniel Blazer, and today I'm clocking in with Angie Figueredo, Director of Talent Acquisition at the Dhanani Group. The Dhanani Group employs an incredible 20,000 plus hourly workers across 13 quick service restaurant brands. During our conversation, Angie discusses the most successful things she's done to attract new employees, how she's increasingly shifted her strategy from hiring to retention, how she's planning to rely upon automation to win at hiring in 2023, and more. Enjoy! It might be hard to remember, but January, February of this, 2022 versus November, December, if you had to compare and contrast, what would you say? Is it a little, have you found it's gotten a little bit harder as the year has progressed, or like you said, is it just kind of different?
Well, my situation was a little unique because when I came on to the Dhanani Group, I really didn't have a team, but I was given a team that was situated with Pizza Hut. So I had 3 recruiters there. Those 3 recruiters didn't really have recruiting experience, but they were great operators. They had been very successful district managers, general managers, and they ran their operations really well. So I had to do a lot of training those first few months. Into probably the middle of the year, we did start kind of kicking it up a little bit. We started introducing, really going after hiring events, trying to reduce our cost of postings. We are running on a very lean budget, so our creativity really had to kick in. And we had to really analyze, again, I had to look at the, bit of the strategy that I had designed for the year and how I was going to achieve it by the end of the year. And it was really to get people in the door. How do we get people in the door? We were kind of playing whack-a-mole at the first part of the year because, our operators were in desperate need. So stabilizing that was part of the strategy, and then continuing keeping the cost down. So hiring events were and are a huge success for us today. We really taken a different approach to that, and I would say that into 2023 we're going to continue to do that. And find ways, that we can leverage all the sources that we have to make that happen.
Yeah, I'd love to kind of drill down into that a little bit more, if that's okay, because I feel like probably a lot of people watching this, when you say, you're operating very lean, you're expected to do more with less, those are probably some things that sound pretty familiar to a lot of people in the talent acquisition space. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about the events that you said were extremely successful. Was that something with the scale of your operation? Is that are you sponsoring those? Are you co-sponsoring those? Are you joining existing events? Are they in person, online? Can you just kind of explain a little bit more about those?
We run the entire events ourselves, and they are in person. They're at the location. We combine our technology and the resources that we have to hold these events. In the past, what we used to do is we used to post, for example, a GM position for 2 weeks at a certain budget on Indeed to get candidate flow. We found that, a lot of times the hiring managers weren't, quickly responding to those. So that was a part of it that we needed to kind of bridge the gap there and help them along a little bit. So we decided with the hiring events, the recruiters were going to do a lot of work behind the scenes to engage. Engagement is that's the word we use today here. We are engaging with candidates, whether it's through, our text messaging, our emails, whatever source that we have a bunch of candidates, we will engage for those. So we run the events ourselves. We partner up with the operators. We have a outline that they follow for each event, and leading up to those events, we may post it for 5 days prior to the event, and in those 5 days, we're constantly engaging with not only candidates that are active in our postings, through our ATS, through Indeed, through any other source, but we're also engaging in passive candidates that we get through Indeed. So that part of it has really filled our bucket a lot more. And the more people we invite, the more opportunity for that time to fill will lessen for us. So as you know, in recruiting, it's a numbers game, right? So I could send out 1,000 invitations and maybe 50 people show up and I hire you two, so it's the amount of candidate engagement that we've really dedicated ourselves to. And then the second part of that is the relationship that we have developed with operations to ensure that candidate engagement continues on, even especially when they come to the location. Pizza Hut does an excellent job of really making it an event when somebody walks in. They have balloons, they give out, maybe free pizzas or, coupons, things like that. It's just simple things, and I know we can all do it, but it really makes people feel like they're needed, they're important, right? And they want to work for us. So that's what we want to bring to the table for that candidate experience. But it does start with that engagement and just a lot of work behind it. In terms of the cost, that's a lot less for us to post and do that way than do those 2 weeks with nobody really contacting candidates. So there's a lot of ownership on the recruiting team to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like kind of the theme with hiring as well as retention, like you said, is it was a little bit of the whack-a-mole, trying to just keep up with things. But now as the years progress, looking forward, you're able to maybe think a little bit more strategic, a little more long-term. What would you say? I know that this question is probably oversimplifying it. But for somebody watching this, and if they're thinking in their mind, yes, I totally agree with what Angie's saying. We need to do better on retention. We need to think more retention versus acquisition. What would you say is like the, start here, or I would recommend like these two things to like kind of shape your retention strategy?
Sure. I think the number one thing I would say is, build that relationship with your operations. Even with Burger King, our operations team, we work hand in hand. The day doesn't go by that we don't have a conversation. A week doesn't go by that we don't meet with them as a whole, district managers. When you start building those type of relationships and they start understanding that they're just not out there by themselves, that we're here to support them and help them, develop these people, then it becomes a lot easier. In terms of like the retention on the candidate or the employee side, again, that's the manager's part, is that they have to be part of that success for that person. We want people to walk into our locations and feel that, even if it's, 3 months that they're going to work for us or have a career for the rest of their life with us, from the very beginning, it has to be a positive environment. It has to be a positive experience. People they have the need again to be wanted and to be part of that success. So the managers have to be in there really making sure that the training is there. We train to retain, so that's kind of our model. But the relationship, I would just go back to the relationship with operations is so important. I can't do my job without operations. We don't sit behind a computer here all day long and just, hope that, what I call posting and praying, and hope that they get people in the door. We push people to get in the door and work with operations on that.
So many great things in what you said. And I love, to kind of there's kind of a through line to these events where you kind of show, externally that you're excited for someone to join the company. But then, like you said, that kind of continues, maybe not with balloons and, the party atmosphere, but even after they're hired, it's kind of like there's that through line, right? Where you're still kind of communicating the value and all of those good things. So yeah, that makes sense.
And my team, and to do another part of our strategy, our goals for next year is to do, stay interviews and really stay connected to the candidates that we're hiring. Right now, my team just handles anywhere from a GM and above. Hourly is all handled through the store, but even maybe reduce that into a smaller version of how the store can retain by having those stay interviews. A lot of times what we find is that the candidates, especially if it's somebody that we hired, they feel like talking to the talent acquisition team is a little bit safer space than actually talking to a manager. So they'll be a little bit more forthcoming and honest with us on what's, good and what's bad, but we want to hear it all. So we want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of, how we need to make some changes. And then make sure that information is communicated to the leaders. And it goes and the great thing about working for a family-run business is that, because I've worked in corporate too, is that I have a direct line to the people that are making the big decisions. So that helps a lot, and they're very, very supportive of that.
So would you say, kind of thinking forward to 2023, the year ahead, would you say that what you kind of just discussed, that's probably like your number one priority kind of on the acquisition side?
Yeah, definitely. We also will start utilizing a lot of new things that the company has added. Any new vendors. We're constantly testing, and talking to different vendors. Automation is going to be a big part of it. We want to make sure that our operators, anytime we look at a new vendor to come in, we really look at the whole picture. But first, we look at to make sure that it's easy for our operators to use. At the end of the day, we don't make money for the company. Our position, the stores do, and so they have to run stores. And with today's staffing, how low it is, sometimes we might have, 2 people running a Pizza Hut, and that's tough, so they don't have time to go in and source for their candidates. So we identify those 911 stores and then put a little bit, more one-on-one attention to that. But in terms of our vendors, definitely automation is going to be part of it. For example, at Pizza Hut, we just got a marketing director. So we're going to be working really close with her to make sure that we already are out there on social media a little bit, but really step up that part of it a little bit more, and branding the company for more attention.
So, definitely like you said, when you're vetting vendors, part of it is like, okay, is this solution just easy to use? Does it make sense? How else do you get operators to actually use the tools and the solutions that you've already vetted? They're good, but maybe you're not getting as much uptake as you want. What do you kind of do next?
So, that's a great question, because we're actually going through that right now. We're having, weekly meetings with all our DMs. They're open to inviting their GMs to attend these meetings. After training, we'll have, weekly, step-in meetings for anybody. It's sitting out there, and anybody can just jump in and ask questions. We'll be on the line for 30 minutes to make sure that they're doing okay. And this may go on for, a few months until we are sure that people are using it. Those weekly meetings do show us the usage. And numbers are huge. I'm very much into analytics and reporting. So we really use those to show our operators who's using, who's not. And it's their responsibility to make sure that those people step it up. And we keep track of that really well. But more so the support behind it. It's the simplest thing. Just answer your phone if they call you, because a lot of times they'll call us and say, hey, or they'll send us an email. The response time for us, whether it's a phone call or an email, we have to respond to them right away, because most of the time they have somebody sitting there that's wanting to get hired. And if they're having difficulty hire that person is just going to walk across the street to McDonald's and get hired there. So. Yeah, it's the simplest things, really. We just don't try to overcomplicate it. We think from the operator's perspective. Again, I've worked in a lot of stores myself, and I've been there working side by side with the operators, so I understand that as well.
You've kind of touched on automation, and I'd love to talk a little bit more about that topic, because obviously that's kind of essential given all of the challenges faced by your space right now. But like, how do you kind of see automation fitting into the process? Like, do you kind of have a philosophy of like how it should be used or how it shouldn't be used?
Yeah, so automation's great, right? But nothing's going to be perfect, and there's always going to be glitches or things like that. It's again your time, the admins that are behind that automation that are helping support operations. How are you going to support the issues that are coming through? I would say to anybody that's trying to put something together, allow your team to be the subject matter experts in that automation. Don't always rely on your vendor, or even up front when you are, coming to an agreement with that. Make sure that you are the super admin within that you can make the changes, you can make the fixes, whatever it is. So that's one thing. So we try to make sure that part of it is there, because again, making it so easy for a candidate from the candidate experience. We redid our application this year. Every year going forward, we're going to look at our application again and make sure that it's easy. Today, it takes like less than 5 minutes to get through our application process. Sometimes just not even that, 2-3 minutes. So we're constantly looking as we ask ourselves, what is it that we really need up front from a candidate to talk to them? Generally, it's just their phone number and email address. And, having a resume is great, but a lot of hourlies might not have that. But so it's just simple things like that in automation. We want to make sure that our operators and our team is working in one system. Making sure that your background check is integrated into that, your, payroll system, whatever it is, if you have an HRIS system is part of that. So we're all working in one area, and that is the system of record. But then we also have to understand we can't lose that human touch to it as well. And that goes both on the operational side and the candidate side. So again, I have a candidate that can't get in there or is having a hard time. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking candidates and employees today. So we really need to make sure that if they're having a difficult time, we identify that and don't treat them as, oh, here's a link or here's some information, follow the steps. We pick up the phone, we make sure that we talk them through it. On on the operational side, again, that's part of the training that we're doing, is to say to them, your part here to make this successful is that you're going to see them face to face. So again, you have to make that experience a great experience starting from the beginning. Don't lose that human touch with the candidates. So it's a combination of both, But I'm still a big proponent on calling and talking to people, especially if it's a unique situation or something that, I know I can fix. I will pick up the phone and talk to them.
Thank you for listening to On the Clock. For more info, visit workstream.us/podcast. I've included that link, as well as a link in the show notes to watch my entire conversation with Angie. Until next time, we're clocking out.